You're carrying something that's quietly killing your peace every day. And it's not the past. It's your refusal to let go of the anger. Ask yourself honestly, what's hurting you more, what they did to you, or the fact that you keep reliving it every single day? This video isn't here to tell you you're weak. It's here to show you how strong you actually are. When you choose to let go. Not for them. For you. If you've ever been so angry you couldn't sleep, so tense you couldn't think clearly, so drained that it left you empty, then this is for you. Hit like, subscribe if it speaks to you, and share it with someone who's still carrying something they were never meant to hold. 1. You're not angry, you're still holding on. There's a hard truth most men don't want to admit. You're not angry because of what they did. You're angry because you're still holding on to how you wanted them to be. The event passed, but your grip on the story remains. You expected respect, they gave you silence. You gave loyalty, they offered betrayal. You tried to lead, they walked away. And deep down, you still believe that shouldn't have happened. But it did. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The storm isn't outside, it's within your interpretation. Anger is often just a shield, covering disappointment, shame, ego. You wanted control. You didn't get it. Now you carry the fire. But ask yourself, is the fire hurting them, or is it burning you? Because here's the reality. Anger doesn't punish the person who wronged you. It punishes the version of you who refuses to let go. The world doesn't bend to your expectations. People don't follow your script. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop giving your peace away for free. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Holding on is easy. Letting go is an act of mastery. Not because it makes you soft, but because it proves you're not ruled by your wounds. A small but powerful challenge. Write down one name, the person who still takes up space in your mind. Then ask yourself, am I angry at them, or at myself for expecting something different? Let the answer come without judgment. Then let it go. Not for them. For you. You're not angry. You're still holding on. And you can stop today. 2. Anger doesn't make you strong, it makes you stuck. You've been taught that anger is power. That raising your voice is a form of control. That staying bitter is how you never let them win. But what if that's a lie? What if the real cost of anger isn't what it does to others, but what it's doing to you? Let's be honest, most of your anger isn't explosive. It's quiet. It lingers in your chest. It sharpens your thoughts, shortens your breath, drains your sleep. It rides with you to work. It shows up in how you reply to texts. It becomes the lens you view people through, skeptical, guarded, cold. And the worst part? You start calling it strength. You convince yourself that this edge is clarity. But deep down, you know, you're not clear. You're just closed. Seneca warned about this. Anger, an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. Anger doesn't protect your boundaries, it corrodes your clarity. It blurs your judgment, hijacks your presence, and makes you reactive instead of grounded. It doesn't make you stronger, it just hardens the parts of you that used to feel. The Stoics didn't see anger as righteous fire. They saw it as a form of mental slavery. Because the moment you need someone else to act differently so you can be at peace, you've already given them control over your state. That's not strength. That's dependency in disguise. So what do? Not suppress it. Not act like it doesn't matter. But study it. Sit with it like a scientist, not a soldier. Ask yourself, plainly, what expectation of mine was violated? What part of me feels threatened right now? If I act on this anger, will I respect myself tomorrow? This kind of self-questioning isn't soft, it's severe. It requires discipline. It requires brutal honesty. It requires you to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes you were never wronged. You were just unprepared to accept reality as it is. And when you do, something shifts. You realize the goal isn't to win. The goal is to stop bleeding. Practice this today. When something irritates you, don't react for 5 minutes. Just 5. Watch what rises. Watch what it says about you. Then decide if that reaction deserves your energy, your words, or your time. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. And in that space, that pause, that refusal to be hijacked, you reclaim your mind. Anger wants you to move fast. But strength knows how to wait. Let others flinch. Let others snap. You breathe. You see clearly. Because clarity is power. And clarity only comes from stillness. 3. Stillness is strength. Movement isn't always power. You paused. You didn't react. And for a moment, the storm passed without wrecking you. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of mastery. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about what happens after the pause, that hollow space where you're not lashing out, but you're still simmering. Where the anger isn't in your hands anymore, but it's still in your body. That's the moment most men stumble. Because we've been trained to think that doing nothing is losing. That if we don't say something, we're letting it slide. That silence means defeat. That not reacting means we're soft. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Stillness is the mark of the man who knows he has nothing to prove. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. He didn't say be the wave. He said, be the cliff. And yet, how often do you find yourself being the wave, crashing, rushing, pushing to make your point, to protect your pride, to defend the version of yourself that's already hurt? The Stoic doesn't collapse under pressure. But he also doesn't explode. He absorbs, examines, and lets go what doesn't serve the higher order of his mind. Stillness doesn't mean you ignore the offense. It means you take back the time and space to respond with intention, not impulse. Stillness is refusing to let someone's chaos pull you off center. Stillness is power that isn't noisy. It's what men with real self-respect practice, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Here's your practice today, simple, but difficult. When you feel anger rising, stop. Don't just pause. Sit. Literally. Take a seat. Let your body become immovable. Drop your shoulders. Breathe only through your nose. And say to yourself, I do not answer in anger. I answer in truth, or not at all. Set a 2-minute timer. Sit through the tension without reacting. Feel the urge. Let it pass. Because once you've sat through that wave without moving, you'll understand something powerful. The emotion didn't need to be resolved. It needed to be witnessed without your ego adding fuel to it. This is how you train your nervous system to respect your mind. This is how you stop letting emotions command you like a puppet. You don't rise to every challenge. You rise above it. And here's something to reflect on tonight. Did I keep my stillness today, or did I let someone else move me? Not as guilt, but as data. Because this work isn't about being perfect, it's about becoming conscious. One response at a time. When the world moves fast, slow is power. When voices are loud, silence is clarity. When others react, you remain unshaken. Because real strength isn't found in what you fight. It's found in what you choose not to fight anymore. 4. You don't have to win the fight, you have to win yourself. By now, you've probably seen it. The moment when someone throws a line at you, sharp, provoking, below the belt. You feel the fire rise. Your tongue loads like a weapon. Your chest tightens like it's ready to armor up and swing. And every part of you screams. Say it. Hit back. Make them feel it. But what if I told you? You don't need to win this one. You just need to not lose yourself in it. Because here's what no one tells men. Not every fight is yours. Not every attack deserves an answer. Not every moment requires your energy. In fact, the man who needs to win every time is usually the one most afraid of being seen. You've been raised in a culture that mistakes dominance for dignity, where responding louder means you're stronger, where being right becomes more important than being clear. But clarity and composure are weapons too, they just don't make as much noise. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Why delay? Because when you pause, the illusion fades. You realize you weren't defending your truth, you were defending your ego. You weren't speaking your values, you were speaking your wounds. Every argument is an invitation to step into the mud, to prove something that doesn't need proving, to spend your emotional currency on someone who may not even have earned your attention. Let me say it plain. You don't owe a response to every opinion. You don't owe your energy to every conflict. You owe it to yourself to choose peace when war would only cost you. Because real strength isn't found in how fast you retaliate. It's found in how rarely you need to. Here's something you can do today. Before entering any conversation that might trigger you, pause. Say to yourself quietly, "What's the cost of proving I'm right?" Then ask, "What do I gain if I stay calm?" Write down your answers. Yes, physically. Pen and paper. Track what triggers you and what it costs you to take the bait. Over time, you'll start to see it. The arguments you won weren't wins at all. They were withdrawals from your peace. And no one on the other side walked away changed, just bruised. Including you. You are not here to defend your pride at all costs. You are here to defend your path. To protect your state. To preserve your stillness like a man guards the gates of his house. That means sometimes you'll walk away not because you're scared, but because you know there's nothing there worth stepping into. Let this be your reminder. The one who stays composed in chaos is not the one who lost. He's the one who's already won. 5. You're not remembering, you're reopening the wound. Let's be clear. Most of your pain isn't happening right now. It's happening in your head, in a loop you've played so many times, it feels like the present. But it's not. The conversation that went sideways. The betrayal that caught you off guard. The woman who left, the friend who vanished, the father who never came back. It's not happening now. But you're still bleeding. Not because they're hurting you, but because you keep replaying it. Memory can be a teacher. But more often than not, it becomes a prison. And the longer you sit inside it, the more you confuse the pain with identity. You start thinking, this is who I am now. But let's not lie to ourselves. You're not learning from the past when you remember it. You're reliving it. You're refeeling it. You're staying in it. There's a difference between reflection and rumination. The first gives you clarity. The second keeps you stuck. And every time you say to yourself, "I can't believe that happened," what you're really saying is, "I'm refusing to let it stop happening inside me." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily. You always own the option of having no opinion. No opinion about what was done to you. No reaction to the shadow that tries to re-enter your present. No allegiance to pain that no longer belongs to your current self. But that's hard, right? Because part of you feels like letting go is erasing the truth. That forgetting means pretending it didn't matter. It mattered. But it doesn't get to matter forever. You are not obligated to keep the wound open just to prove it existed. Here's your practice for today. When the past shows up uninvited, stop. Say, out loud if needed, "That's over. It already happened. I'm not there anymore." Then write it down. What is this memory trying to keep me from doing in the present? Avoiding trust? Avoiding joy? Avoiding new relationships, new risks, new peace? Now choose one small act that contradicts the fear. Call someone you've avoided. Take the walk you've delayed. Say what you've been holding in. One act that disproves the story that pain has to lead the way. You are not a collection of what was done to you. You are what you choose to do with it. And if you choose to let it define you, control you, narrate your every step, then the past wins. Not because it's stronger, but because you keep feeding it. Let the past be what it is, a place you visited, not a place you live. The memory will visit you. That's normal. But you don't have to invite it in, serve it tea, and let it stay overnight. You're not remembering. You're reactivating. But you don't have to. Not today. Not again. 6. Silence is a man's sharpest weapon. The world will bait you to speak. It will provoke you with disrespect, misunderstandings, half-truths, and loud opinions, then wait for your reaction like it's owed. But what if you didn't speak? What if you didn't react? What if your silence wasn't submission, but strategy? We live in a culture that mistakes volume for power, where whoever shouts first must be right, where responses are expected instantly, and restraint is confused with weakness. But the man who speaks less often isn't weaker, he's tighter with his energy. And the man who chooses his words instead of spills them? He doesn't fear being misunderstood, he respects the weight of clarity. There's a quiet violence in silence, not the kind that threatens, but the kind that cannot be manipulated. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." And what he meant was, not every emotion needs a response. Not every injustice needs your voice. Because the second you speak from anger, you've given someone else the keys to your internal state. You've let them move you. You've let them drag you away from stillness. And stillness is what you've spent your whole life chasing, whether you realize it or not. Most people speak because they're afraid of the space that silence creates. But silence, used with precision, creates authority. The Stoics knew this. When in doubt, observe. When attacked, evaluate. When uncertain, wait. You don't owe the world your voice every time it knocks on your pride. Sometimes, the strongest move is to simply not move at all. Here's your exercise, one simple change. For one day, speak 50% less than you normally do. Cut every comment in half. Don't fill silences. Don't explain yourself unless truly necessary. Don't correct someone unless it changes the outcome. Instead, listen. Watch how people move when you don't meet them with noise. Notice what rises inside you when you resist the impulse to set the record straight. Keep a note in your phone. What would happen if I stayed silent here? Write down the moments when you chose stillness over speech. And at the end of the day, review them. You'll find that 80% of what you wanted to say wasn't for truth. It was for validation. For ego. For noise. But silence starves the ego. And what's left after that is power. This kind of presence, this clarity, this resistance to be pulled, it's a muscle. And we train it together, here. This space isn't about high-volume inspiration or emotional overdrive. It's about remembering that your mind belongs to you. That your emotions don't get to run the show. That your response is your kingdom. If that's what you're building, stay. Stick around. There's more to come. No pressure. No fluff. Just the work. You can subscribe if this is speaking to you. Not because I need you to, but because you might. You don't always have to say something. You just have to mean it when you do. And if the silence feels uncomfortable, good. That's where the real work begins. 7. Letting go is a skill, not a feeling. You've been told that letting go is emotional. That it's something that happens to you, over time, as the heart softens or memory fades. But that's not true. Letting go is a practice, a skill, a muscle you either train or leave atrophied. You don't just get over pain. You decide what you will no longer carry. And then you train your system to obey that decision, one breath, one day, one choice at a time. Most men wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the hurt to dull. They wait for closure from people who are never coming back. And while they wait, resentment builds a home in their chest. It tightens the jaw. It hardens the eyes. It shortens their words and stretches their nights into sleepless loops of what if, why me, and I should have. But the truth is, the door to freedom is already unlocked. You just have to stop sitting by it and start walking through it, even if your hands are shaking. Epictetus put it simply. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. You can't control what they said. You can't undo what was done. You can't force them to see your side or to understand your worth. But you can control whether you let that pain rerun like a broken tape in your head. You can choose whether or not you relive a moment that no longer belongs to this day. Because here's the reality. Every time you rehearse that pain, you reinforce it. Every time you replay that memory, you rewire yourself to stay small, bitter, guarded. And every time you think, I'm just not over it yet, what you're really doing is waiting for a feeling to do the work only action can do. Letting go is not a mood. It's a move. Here's your move for today, practical and quiet. Find one object that reminds you of the pain you're still holding. Maybe it's a photo, a message thread you haven't deleted, an item they gave you, or something symbolic you've kept as proof of the hurt. Take it and physically remove it from your space. Trash it. Burn it. Donate it. But don't keep it. Because as long as it's around, it's not just in your drawer, it's in your nervous system. Then write, by hand. This doesn't own me anymore. I choose clarity. I choose presence. I choose peace. Tape it to your mirror. Look at it tomorrow morning. Read it before checking your phone. Let it be the voice you listen to, not the one from the past. This isn't some hollow ritual. This is neurobiology. This is energetic direction. This is who you're becoming. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to bleed twice. It's not passive. It's the most active thing you can do. It requires presence, repetition, and grit. So don't wait to feel ready. Get ready by acting, and act until your nervous system starts to believe you. Letting go is a skill. And like every skill worth having, it sharpens under pressure. You don't let go once. You let go daily. You let go despite. You let go until you forget what it felt like to carry so much. 8. You think you're punishing them, but you're poisoning yourself. Let's call it what it is. That anger you've been carrying for years. The one that shows up every time their name is mentioned. The one that makes your chest harden when you remember what they did. The one you keep tucked just beneath your sarcasm, your silence, your I'm fine. It's not justice. It's poison. And it's not theirs. It's yours. You're not punishing them. You're punishing yourself. You've told yourself, I'll never forgive. You wear it like a badge of self-respect. But really, it's armor that never comes off. And what doesn't come off eventually starts to sink in. Because here's the part you don't want to hear. They might be sleeping peacefully. They might be laughing right now. They might be with someone else, moving on, building, living. And you? You're still hurting yourself with the memory of someone who's long gone. Seneca said it clearly. He who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary. But that's the trap of resentment. It feels righteous. It makes you feel like you still have control. But control over what? The past is finished. It's archived. You don't get to rewrite it, only re-experience it. And the longer you hold it, the more you start to believe that your pain is power. that your bitterness keeps you sharp, that the wound is your fuel. But it's not. It's a leak in your spirit. And it's draining everything good from you, not in one blow, but in a slow, steady bleed. You can't evolve while clenching a fist. Here's your work, a real action, not just a concept. Write a letter to the person you haven't forgiven. You don't have to send it. You never should. This letter isn't for them, it's for you. But write it all. Every word you never got to say. Every rage-soaked sentence. Every truth you swallowed. Then burn it. Not because it erases anything, but because it releases you from the illusion that you're still owed something. You're not. They've taken enough. Don't give them one more ounce of your attention. Don't give them one more hour of your sleep. Don't let them live rent-free in your nervous system. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness isn't approval. It's closure. And sometimes the only justice is reclaiming your clarity. Ask yourself tonight, who am I still letting control my emotions, even when they're not in the room? Name them. Then decide if they've earned that power. And if not, take it back. Not with anger. With indifference. Indifference is where power lives. Not the kind that needs revenge. The kind that needs nothing. You're not weak for letting go. You're finally strong enough to stop bleeding. You don't need to win. You just need to be free. 9. You don't need more, you need to carry less. You keep thinking it's about more. More success. More validation. More closure. More answers, more certainty, more respect, more control. You tell yourself you'll be okay once you get that one last thing. That raise. That apology. That understanding. That peace. But the truth? What's crushing you isn't what you don't have. It's what you're still dragging with you. You're not tired because the road is too long. You're tired because your backpack is full of things you should have let go of years ago. Memories that no longer serve. Standards that don't fit who you are anymore. Expectations inherited from a version of yourself you've outgrown. People you've been carrying emotionally long after they stopped walking beside you. And that's the illusion we've been sold. That happiness comes when you get more. But what if happiness, or something better, stillness, actually comes when you have less to manage inside your mind? Marcus Aurelius warned himself. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. And yet we keep stacking. We stack responsibilities. We stack identities. We stack pressure, thinking if we can just manage it better, we'll finally arrive at peace. But peace doesn't arrive because you hold everything together. Peace arrives when you finally put something down. When you stop identifying with your chaos. When you stop expecting everyone to understand your pain. When you stop giving weight to the things that pull you out of presence. Because here's what most men won't say out loud. The pressure you're under isn't coming from the outside. It's coming from the story you've told yourself about who you have to be to deserve peace. Here's your practice today. Strip something away. Physically. Open your closet. Your desk. Your phone. Pick one thing, just one, that's cluttering your space or mind. And let it go. Delete it. Burn it. Give it away. Even if it still works. Even if you might need it later. Why? Because you're not just letting go of the object. You're letting go of the voice in your head that keeps saying, not yet. Not ready. Just in case. That voice is lying to you. It's not preserving your safety, it's preserving your stuckness. Then, do the same thing with your emotional life. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that no longer matches who I am? Maybe it's a resentment. Maybe it's a version of masculinity that no longer fits. Maybe it's a commitment to someone you no longer trust, or an identity you've outgrown. Write it down. A name. a thought, a habit, a role. Then say, quietly, you served me once. You don't serve me now. I release you. That's not weakness. That's self-respect. That's spiritual hygiene. You don't need to hold everything anymore. And you don't need to explain your lightness to people who are addicted to their own heaviness. Let them carry what they choose. You walk lighter. Because freedom isn't found in arrival. It's found in release. Letting go isn't just emotional. It's architectural. It shapes your inner space. It defines the terrain of your day. And eventually, it becomes how you build your life. Not around what you hold, but around what you no longer need to hold anymore. 10. Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for the man you're becoming. You keep saying, I'm not ready to forgive. As if forgiveness is a favor. As if it's something you give to someone else when they've finally earned it. When they apologize. When they understand. When they admit what they did. But what if they never do? What if they never say sorry? What if they never change? What if they don't even remember the damage they caused? Then what? You live bitter? You carry it forever? You keep waking up every day giving energy to someone who isn't even in the room? That's not strength. That's captivity. And somewhere, deep down, you know it. Because forgiveness was never about them. It was always about you. About who you're willing to become in spite of what happened. About whether you want to be a man defined by reaction or by resolution. Epictetus put it simply. When someone does you wrong, you must immediately consider what concept of good or evil led him to do it. He didn't say excuse it. He didn't say agree with it. He didn't say pretend it didn't happen. He said understand it, and then choose your response based on your own principles, not your pain. That's what forgiveness is. Not letting them off the hook, but getting yourself off the hook. Because you've been hanging there long enough. Here's the hardest part no one tells you. Forgiveness will not feel fair. It will feel like letting them win. It will feel like you're forgetting. It will feel like weakness at first. But that's the ego speaking, the part of you that still wants vengeance, recognition, proof. The deeper part of you knows. You don't need to win. You don't need them to see. You need peace. You need space. And forgiveness isn't some sacred act of virtue. It's the choice to stop keeping score. Because that scorekeeping is what's draining you. That mental accounting of who owes what, who hurt you how, who failed you when. And if you're not careful, it becomes your whole identity. But you weren't born bitter. You weren't born resentful. That was built, and it can be dismantled. So here's what I want you to do, not tomorrow. Today. Write the name. The person. The story you keep replaying. Then write this beneath it, word for word. I choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because I do. Read it twice. Aloud, if you can. Then rip the page. Burn it. Shred it. Tear it into pieces. Not as drama, but as direction. To signal to your body and your brain, this part of the story is over. You're not erasing what happened. You're refusing to let it own you. You're not letting them back in. You're finally closing the door so you can build something that isn't rooted in rage. You've carried this long enough. And the man you're becoming? He's not powered by pain. He's powered by purpose. You don't forgive because they're worthy. You forgive because you're finished. With the war. With the waiting. With the wait. This is the work. Every word we've written. Every pause you've taken. Every memory you've sat with instead of run from. It's all led here. To this quiet, clear choice. You're not your anger. You're not your past. You're not what they did to you. You are what you do now. You are what you choose next. And if you made it this far, it means you're ready. If this journey has met you where you are, if it's helped you sit more deeply in your own life, if it's reminded you that your emotions are visitors, not landlords, then stay. There's more ahead. And none of it will be loud, but all of it will be real. Subscribe if you haven't. Not for content, for clarity. Because clarity is what you build when you stop running and start returning to yourself. Comment one word below, just one, that describes your inner state right now. Not for applause, for accountability. For you. Your word. Your next step. Your story, rewritten from within. You've just walked through a path most men avoid their entire lives. Facing yourself. Without excuses. Without blame. Without hiding behind your anger. You've seen that reaction is easy. But restraint, that's earned. No one is born unshakable. Stillness is trained, decision by decision, moment by moment, silence by silence. You've realized that forgiveness isn't a gift to someone else, it's a release for yourself. That letting go isn't losing, it's refusing to let pain define who you are anymore. And above all, you've touched a simple truth. Peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from carrying less. So if something still feels heavy in your chest, try putting it down. Not for them. For you. If something in this journey met you, if it gave you pause, if it helped you hold yourself just a little more firmly, subscribe. Not because I need more followers, but because you may need a place that reminds you of your center when the world pulls you in every direction. And before you go, leave one word. Just one. A word that captures your internal state right now. Stillness. Strength. Clarity. Sovereignty. Or whatever feels true in this moment. Write it down. Not just in your mind, but here. Sometimes, one honest word is the beginning of an entirely different life.